The best way to listen to the best of the week is on the Relevant Radio app. Free and always free. Download and share the #1 free Catholic app today in the App Store.
If you haven't seen, I'm sure you've heard of the recent Netflix release of a couple weeks ago called Adolescence. It addresses the crisis of boys today. It chronicles a story of a 13-year-old boy who murders a fellow classmate after being rejected from his asking her out. Everyone is talking about this, and I started with watching the trailer a day or two ago, and my initial reaction is this should never have been made, because it chronicles the story of a 13-year-old boy who killed a 13-year-old classmate. I'm trying to be really careful with what I say here, and there's no spoiler. They let you know from the get-go pretty much really quickly that he did indeed do it. The series is more so about why he did it. And it presents the crisis of boys. Not that they cover all areas of why things have become what they are for many young men. But my concern is the reenactment of this, number one. You know, although this is for adults, you know kids are watching this. It's riveting, it's drawing in. And another concern with this is the shock value, and it's a challenge for us with what we watch. Are we, and I believe we are, consuming so much media content today that we've become so desensitized that we need something more shocking to watch? And that is getting into the mind of a 13-year-old boy who did something horrific. And people are looking at this as such a thought-provoking opportunity to see, well, what are kids really going through? What are the challenges of boys? And it does indeed address some of those challenges. It even brings up the fact that part of what's behind this little boy Jamie's challenges is his use of pornography. And I think it's the third episode. So the first episode is the shocking circumstance of the police showing up at the door of Jamie's home. And it really tells the story of Jamie and his father looking at, what have we done? What did we miss? In it, the Miller family's whole life is shaken up in the first episode by the announcement that he is believed to have killed this young girl, and indeed he has. The second episode goes into starting to interview people at the school. The third episode, you see him being walked through and working with the psychologist. The whole thing, something that shows, I guess some people say, what is referred to commonly as toxic masculinity. I also think it also increases the villainization of boys. But here's the bottom line. Jamie, this 13-year-old boy, was rejected by Katie when he asked her out. Katie then went on to call Jamie an incel, and this led to a cyberbullying campaign against him that she led, calling him an incel. Now, you may say, what is an incel? Well, it's someone, a boy or a man who participates in an online community, and these are men who are attracted to women, but they're attracted to women who are interested in them. And so it's part of that 80-20 principle of how 80% of women are attracted to only 20% of men. Therefore, the conclusion in the incel community is that you have to manipulate women to be with you. And this group is also referred to as involuntary celibates. These are the involuntary celibates. These are the men suffering in our culture because 80% of women are attracted to 20% of men. And it's really fed this online culture over the last, especially 5 to 10 years of the incel movement. It turns into this little bit of a I shouldn't say a little bit, an actual radicalization of some men. And it really is damaging to the self-perceived value that not just men, but young boys have. Now, I don't know about you, but I immediately heard the story of Adolescence, and my thoughts were pornography's behind this. No, I know this is a fictional story, but porn would be a leading cause to desensitize someone to the point where you're able to kill them, and kill them at such a young age. And indeed, in the third episode, Jamie ends up opening up to his psychologist that they're having him work with, and porn indeed comes up. It's formed his view of relationships, his view of identity, his own identity, of gender, of sex, all of those things that are separated out. And what's, I think, striking to me is that the show does really connect misogyny with pornography, which that's what bad male behavior is. It's when we don't get respect for women right. This is misogynistic behavior. And you hear that thrown around quite a bit today. in our modern culture, and it can become annoying to hear from certain feminist groups at a certain point. But what we see in Jamie isn't just about a young boy whose self-identity is damaged or a young boy who's been rejected by a 13-year-old girl. It's not only about the fact that he's looking at pornography. All of these play a part in the greater male crisis, boy crisis of today. But I think Jamie's explosive anger in the third episode also points to just how much our boys are hurting. Boys are at a breaking point in our culture from adolescence well into adulthood today. I was actually at a conference this weekend. Nick Freitas, a former Green Beret, now politician, and someone who speaks a lot about the male crisis today, and he said, there's going to be a revolt. And I argue there already has been. Boys and men are angry. They're hurt by what the world, what feminism, what our educational and family upbringing choices have done. The anger crisis of boys and the attention deficit disorder have led to vast majority of our boys being highly sedated today. And I say sedated because it's not just medicated, it's sedated as a form of anger management, focus management, all the other things that these little boys are being accused of. I can't tell you how often. I was just talking to another woman the other day. I say she's really woke. She's coming to terms with the reality. She comes from an educational system, is a teacher, and has a couple of young children. And she's realizing my oldest is a little boy now. And as he's getting his report card for the couple days a week that he is at, quote, preschool, he's getting in trouble because he can't sit around in a circle. And as she's doing all this research, she's going, I've done it all wrong. As a teacher, as a young teacher, what I expected of boys. And she goes, we're homeschooling. We're going to have a different education model of more physical activity, more of the outdoors. And I was so proud to hear more people waking up to this, including people in the education community. I love the work of Erica Comazar. She's a psychoanalyst and social worker, really setting the record straight about how we are raising kids and the damage that's being done by what we've been told to do, particularly as parents and mothers. She emphasizes that boys are less resilient than girls, and she emphasizes that daycare, preschool, which she calls out for not really being school, and the traditional classroom setting are crippling for kids and especially boys, and that kids, male and female, need more of mom and dad. This brings up another point in the story. Kids need their moms and dads. And seemingly from what I've seen of the Netflix story Adolescence, the mom and dad are trying to figure out, especially dad, why this happened. It's a shining light on the fact that a lot of parents don't actually know what their kids are doing the majority of the time in front of screens. It's a challenge I run into as a parent of a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old when my kids are around other kids and there are 7 kids and 5 screens out. And I'm having to pop quickly behind each and every single one of those screens because I can't just force everyone to turn off their screens no matter how hard I would like to, because it's inappropriate that little kids are unsupervised on so many screens, personalized, and who knows what they could be seeing. Even if they have the filters, we know those filters don't work, and that pornography is coming across on the screens of kids, that inappropriate shows, and it doesn't even have to be inappropriate shows. There are storylines that are made for kids that are not okay to begin with. Disrespectful. There are a bunch of books. I was given a bag of a bunch of books, secondhand books. I've been going through them and reading them with my kids. Some I throw out because I can just tell ahead of time they aren't good. And I can't tell you how many of them, just the tone, the behavior, the attitude is so disrespectful toward parents. I literally can't even give it away or put it in a thrift store bag. I've been hiding them in the trash so that the kids don't see them and say, why did you throw away the Froggy book? Which was one of my latest throwaways of today, because the language from the kid is so rude and disrespectful. But adults are writing these stories about children as if this should be normal and okay. We have fed an education system, an attitude of raising children. We have been lied to that daycare and preschool is okay. We've been lied to that the traditional classroom setting is okay for everyone. This is why I love the work of Erica Comazar, and this is why I'll tie some of her work into what I think the solutions are here. And the solutions are really clear. but we don't like them because it convicts our way of living. It convicts the choices we've made in the past, and it challenges us day to day. And I raise my hand. It's a challenge every single day to try to live by these things, and it is outright exhausting. Tech lockdown is number one. So the positive side of it is get outdoors. Kids need FaceTime, not screen time, FaceTime with their peers, with older people such as aunts, uncles, grandparents, the kids in the neighborhood, under correct adult supervision, and always trusted adults that they're with, because you can't trust everyone today. That's the bottom line. We're so cautious with who our kids are around, but tech lockdown's number one. Kids need to be outdoor, FaceTime, reading. They need to have boredom. Boredom is what cultivates their imagination. It teaches them to tell stories, to make up imaginary play, to run and, yes, get hurt and fall off that wall that they just climbed. I think sometimes we think we're doing our best by helicopter parenting and not allowing our kids to move, and we think it's better if a kid's behind a screen, but actually it's more damaging than anything. And so the tech lockdown is throw it out. I love screenstrong.com. They're a great resource on how to delay the use of technology, how to implement within your home and get back your kids. And I mean that when I say get your kids back. If you learn nothing from the trend of this show, I think one, a lot of people are wondering what's happening to our kids. And two, I think a lot of people are so bored with their true crime series that they watch that they need to see something more shocking because we as adults are so addicted to our technology. This show being number one in the United States and globally right now and setting records on Netflix shows how addicted we are to barbaric content and how addicted we are to seeing the inner workings of a twisted mind. And in this case, it's the story of a little boy. And yes, it shows the real sorrow and hurt that little boys are going through, although they don't get all of it right. And this is why we're talking about real solutions to the boy crisis today. And this could go to both boys and girls as well. I think another thing that's important to recognize, and I love Erica Comazar for championing this, kids need a lot of time with their parents daily, not just the scraps at the end of the day, not just the rush at the beginning of the day where people can't even think on either end because you're just trying to get to where the kids have to be, where you have to be. Parents need to be available to their kids. The leading deterrent from pornography today is when a child has empathy. The research indicates that children who are empathetic are not apt to look at pornography. They're able to turn away and shut it down. And no matter how hard we're trying, no matter how hard we think we chose the right place, when you have so many kids to one teacher, only so many needs can be met. Children have to suppress their emotions, suppress their needs. You've got to read her book, Being There, Why the First 3 Years Matters. And it's so funny because people go, okay, I did it. I did the first 3 years. Check. She goes, oh no, she doubled down. She wrote a second book about years, more so 4 through 9. And it's about building resilient children. And it emphasizes why kids still need mom and dad, especially mom. And it starts to address the fact that boys need to start to develop more of their identity as they grow older, separating from the mom and being more with the dad. This touches on the whole gender and same-sex attraction crisis of today. Now, Erica Comazar also emphasizes faith, how faith is what helps to develop empathy as well, that good moral values are necessary. How often do we think, well, we send our kids to Sunday school, we send them to the Catholic school, we go to church on Sundays. It's not enough. That's the bare minimum. That's the starting place. We have to live the faith in our homes, and we have to pray with our children. Being Catholic Christian is not just going to church on Sunday. It's living a sacramental life. It's living the life of the church. It's living a life of grace. It's fighting to stay in a state of grace for ourselves and our loved ones. And I'll argue another part of this is parents' watchfulness. I just see with my own kids, those little things that come up that I wasn't watching, if I wasn't right here all day, every day, that wouldn't be caught. I think kids need a whole lot more of our time than we would like, than we've been told, than we've been led to believe. Each child is so different with unique temperaments, gifts to be cultivated, challenges and temptations to be overcome, personality quirks. Kids need more of us. And I think if we want to go in all these different directions and say it's only technology, or it's only bullying at school. Yes, it's part of that, but that's only a microcosm of the real needs that children have for being well-developed, faith-filled human beings, and that comes through the family. And it requires a lot of work that we've been told you can outsource, that we've been told kids are resilient, and the popularity of this show says otherwise. And we pray for protection over those kids who are being exposed to this film, being exposed to all these crises, and pray for parents that we make the sacrifices necessary to live the mission God has called us to. Like what you just heard? Share it with your family and friends. And thanks for listening.